Live from Bryant-Denny Stadium with special guests, feature stories, and a comprehensive look at Alabama's upcoming game. This is Crimson Tide Kickoff on WVUA 23.
And good morning, everyone. Happy game day, a wet one. I'm Gary Harris, and you're watching Crimson Tide Kickoff. Let's go. As always, we're going to kick it off with our Bama Headlines.
For the latest on the Crimson Tide, you don't need the newspaper. You need Bama Headlines.
Kickoff for Alabama at Ole Miss, now 6:30 p.m., an hour and a half later than the originally scheduled 5 p.m. start. The change is due to Hurricane Delta and was put in place to provide a better forecast for game conditions. The game will be televised by ESPN as originally planned. Expect offensive fireworks. Alabama's offense put up 544 yards last week against A&M. Behind the play of SEC Offensive Player of the Week, QB Mac Jones. On the other side, Ole Miss is number 3 in the nation in passing yards, averaging 382 yards through the air in its first 2 games. We got a stacked show, including a look inside one of the legends that connects these 2 football programs. Plus, we'll have an interview with swimming and diving coach Coley Stickels, Jim Page, the president and CEO of the West Alabama Chamber of Commerce, and longtime Ole Miss beat writer Paris Alford in our Behind Enemy Lines segment. Now, this was the scene yesterday afternoon outside the Malmore Athletic Complex. Alabama loading the buses for the short trip over to the airport and then the flight to Mississippi. You see DJ Dale and Najee Harris, stars on defense and offense, respectively. Offensive coordinator Steve Sarkisian, gifted play caller, certainly one of the top OCs in the country. Defensive coordinator Pete Golding, not quite as much experience as Sark and catches a little more heat from the fans, but the defense has been pretty good so far. They can improve. There is the quarterback, Mac Jones. Boy, he has been outstanding so far this season. And finally, you'll see Nick Saban with Director of Football Operations Ellis Ponder. Coach Saban's the last one on the bus and the first one off. That's the way it works when you're head coach. Ponder with a finger wave, and it was time to roll yesterday afternoon. Well, this week, Coach Nick Saban said the Tide practiced with a wet football, trying to simulate and prepare for the strong possibility that they'll be playing in the rain this evening. Typically in bad weather, the running game becomes a focal point. And despite its early season struggles, Alabama likely has the edge in that department. Ole Miss is dreadful at stopping the run, allowing over 7 yards per attempt. And now the Rebels must deal with an Alabama team on a mission to get its running game in full gear.
Doesn't involve defense or anybody else. It falls on us. It's just something that we personally need to handle. It doesn't matter, what opponent we play. It shouldn't matter what kind of defense they run, what scheme they run. We should be able to accomplish what we want to accomplish.
Well, Alabama is determined to run the ball, and also keep this in mind. The Tide's Najee Harris has scored a touchdown in 10 straight games. The last opponent he didn't score against last season, and that win over Ole Miss. On defense, Alabama's challenge is to slow down an Ole Miss offense that's been dynamic through 2 games. Rebels QB Matt Corral is second in the SEC in passing yards with 715. And Rebels receiver Elijah Moore is averaging 160 yards receiving per game.
Offenses aren't as run heavy as they used to be. They're more balanced with the pass and the run. So we look forward to it. And as a secondary, you get excited for games like these. They know how to utilize their receivers well, and their offense is a very potent offense.
This is a difficult preparation, especially for the defense. These fastball teams that really go fast and play high tempo is hard to simulate in practice, hard to get the players to respond.
Well, when Alabama has the football, keep an eye out for Rebels linebacker Jaquez Jones, number 32. The former Hillcrest High School standout is third on the team in tackles. He's already got 15 stops and a tackle for loss. Well, the Tide has scored 35 or more points in 15 straight games. That streak is tied for the longest in major college football history. In the first 3 quarters, Alabama has outscored its opponents this season 77-23. That's the way you get out on top. And that's strong right there. Well, check out this tweet by the Athletics' Matt Brown. It sums up Alabama's dominance in the Saban era. 61 wins versus ranked teams, 17 more than the next best. No losses to unranked teams, 9 better than the next best. And Alabama's been ranked in the top 5 in 86.1% of polls. Second place, Ohio State at 44.8%. Alabama has been the team since Saban arrived in T-Town. All right, we know the weather issues that are plaguing us this morning, not just here, but over in Oxford as well. Chelsea Aaron is here with us to check in on the latest on the weather situation. Chelsea?
Yeah, Gary, we're still seeing those effects of what was Hurricane Delta now is a tropical depression. Really, the center of this system is going to be situated across Oxford, getting tons of rain here in Tuscaloosa, quieting down a bit there, though, in Oxford, and will continue to quiet down. Also, we're getting some measurable wind gusts. Look at that, 31 miles per hour over there in near Oxford, 18 miles per hour. You can see over toward our area, we're in the 20-mile-per-hour range right now. Temperatures feeling damp as we're getting that influx of moisture from this system. 76 in Tuscaloosa, in the lower 70s in Mississippi right now. As we go throughout the next few hours, though, nearing game time, that rain will taper off. We'll still be dealing with it, so you're going to want to bring that poncho to the game, as we're dealing with some misty drizzle throughout possible points in the game. Again, Bama versus Ole Miss in Oxford. By kickoff, you see, we'll be dealing still with that rainy drizzle. We'll be in the lower 70s by the end of the game. Again, still dealing with some rain, so you're going to want to stay aware as we could see some more rain ongoing through the game. Again, keep that poncho handy. Wind gusts will continue to taper off as well, and we should not see any issues when it comes to that, Gary. That's your local weather forecast.
Thank you, Chelsea. We'll check back with you a little bit later on. It's certainly a lot different, obviously, than last week when the weather was gorgeous for the home opener against Texas A&M. Well, coming up on CTKO, we'll talk with Alabama swim and dive coach Coley Stickels to discuss what we can expect ahead of the first meet of the season. Also, what's the story behind Nick Saban's tremendous amount of respect he has for every opponent? We'll answer that for you. Plus, everybody wants to take a piece of Bryant-Denny Stadium home with them, but what happens when you leave something very valuable behind? Stick around. CTKO will be right back.
You're watching Crimson Tide Kickoff on WVUA 23.
And welcome back to CTKO live inside our WVUA 23 studio in the Digital Media Center inside Bryant-Denny Stadium. Well, you know, over the years, a lot has come out of the Nick Saban press conferences, from breaking news to what some people refer to as rants. We've seen it all. William Galloway joins us now with a trend he's picked up on from Coach Saban. William, tell us about it.
Good morning, Gary. Nick Saban's approach to each game is the same, whether he's preparing for the national championship or a regular season game. And he gives each opponent the same courtesy and has developed a saying I've seen in his press conferences.
We have a tremendous amount of respect for, Ole Miss as a team. DJ's a really, really good coach. I've always had a tremendous amount of respect for him. I think he's done a great job wherever he's been. We've always had a tremendous amount of respect for, the job Lane did when he was here. And we had a lot of respect for Texas A&M's team.
Well, I think Saban and the late Aretha Franklin would have been friends. We all know Coach is meticulous in his approach and everything he does, but definitely he sets the standard when it comes to preparing his team for each opponent. This week, he expanded on what he means when he says tremendous amount of respect.
I think as a player and as a competitor, you always should think that the guy you're going to play against is the best player you played against all year, and go to work every day in practice with the idea that I'm going to have to play really, really well to be able to win my matchup. And, that's something I really have tried to stress to our players regardless of who we're playing, so that you can go play your best as a player.
Well, the players get that chance tonight at 6:30 on ESPN inside Vaught-Hemingway Stadium in Oxford. Reporting live for CTKO, I'm William Galloway.
Thank you so much, William. That's pretty neat that you picked up on that. It is. It's all about respect when Nick Saban and Alabama play another team. Well, a woman went to Alabama Crimson Tide's home football opener this past week and realized one of the diamonds on her wedding ring went missing. Now that's terrible. She called event management with the Crimson Tide, and Victoria Giantana, who is the Assistant Director for Event Management and External Operations, went to the top of the stadium and found the diamond and then returned it to its happy owner. Hear her reaction when UA Athletics said they found that rock.
And so I just kind of started from row 1 of that section and I was like, okay, I'm going to do what I would hope someone would do for me because I know that's so valuable. So I just started looking row by row, and I was huffing and puffing on my way up there. And Red had told me, he was like, be sure to look like behind you in case she was cheering, because it could have fall out behind her. And so I got to the top row and I looked down and I couldn't believe it. It was just laying there. She's reached out to our athletic department with just thanking us, and they were so excited to have it back.
How cool is that? I mean, that is just awesome that, that she was able to find that and get it back to its owner. Well, coming up on CTKO, we catch up again with William Galloway to talk about what we can expect to see from Ole Miss this weekend. And we'll talk to Coach Stickels about swimming and diving in their season. The season opener's coming up. You'll hear more after this timeout on Crimson Tide Kickoff.
At our college, we had what's called the Governor's Labor Management Conference. We have that down in Gulf Shores. There was a guy there with the American Textile Association had come to this conference, and he heard me speak. Well, he calls me. Now, they didn't pay for this conference in Gulf Shores, but it was just part of my job. So he called me and said he wanted me to come to Hilton Head, South Carolina for the American Textile Association meeting. And he said, we'd like it like you did at the Governor's Labor Management Conference. I thought he meant no pay, they just pay my expenses. And I didn't want to take 3 days to go away and that sort of thing. But I told him, no, I appreciate it, but maybe next year. And he said, well, we planned on you being here this year. And I said, well, maybe to keep me, I keep giving him lines to get out. I said, maybe next year, and I appreciate this very much. But he was so insistent, I finally said, well, when's it going to be? He said, it'll be in September. I said, well, that's it. I said, Alabama will be practicing football. And I said, I won't be able to come. And he said, well, we're paying $3,500. I said, I tell you what, go ahead and put me down. I said, if it'll help you, I'll be there.
Money talks, doesn't it, Eddie? Oh, what a treasure that Eddie Conyers is, and we're so proud again this year to have Conyers Corner. Welcome back into CTKO. I'm Gary Harris. Crimson Tide swimming and diving coach Coley Stickels spoke with CTKO's Julia Westerman recently about the season, talking about expectations and his squad. Let's hear that now.
October 1st marked the opening of competition eligibility for many SEC athletics, including swimming and diving. I'm here this morning with Alabama head coach Coley Stickels. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Well, your first year at Alabama last year was cut short by COVID-19, but was still highly successful. So what are you hoping to build on from last season in your second year?
Yeah, we had a lot of momentum after SECs and going into NCAAs, which unfortunately we didn't get to attend. But coming off the quarantine and getting back into the pool, we're riding high off that momentum. We've got some new transfers and freshmen in from all over the world. And so they're back in. Everybody's happy and training hard. And we've been healthy, fortunately, thus far. And we're all excited about getting the season underway.
Well, talking a little bit about your student athletes, 24 of them qualified for the 2020 NCAA championships last year. So is this something that you think the team can achieve again? And what do you think needs to be done to get there?
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, it was a great year in terms of getting athletes qualified. I feel like we obviously missed our best opportunity would have been at NCAAs, particularly on the women's side, where we were pretty loaded with some sprint relays and high point scoring potential. And I think we have all of those relays back this year for the most part intact. And then we have, like I said, some additional transfers and freshmen that are going to add points to that. So I think at a minimum, we can get back to that level and move up into the rankings and ultimately, have a successful NCAAs.
Well, you were recently named a United States national team coach for the 9th year in a row, and junior Kenzie McMahon was named on the team for a 2nd year. So what does it mean to you to have this designation and for her to be on this team as well?
Yeah, it's a great honor, and it's a very difficult thing to do for an athlete to achieve that. And as I always say, you're only as good as your athletes, and so the athletes make me look better than I am. And when they achieve those great things, like Kenzie did, we get an opportunity to be on that team. It kind of gives us the option to travel internationally in the summer. Attend, international meets, use the Olympic Training Center in Colorado Springs. So there's some benefits to being on the national team, but it's a great honor. And when you see your flag of the United States represented internationally at any meet, that brings chills to your spine. It's a great honor, and it's not something I take lightly or take it for granted.
So the men and the women have both gotten back into training this year, but there isn't a firm competition plan yet. So when do you expect to have a season schedule, and how will it feel for the student athletes to finally get back to competing?
Any day. I think that we should have a pretty sound and structured schedule any day. The SEC is working to kind of finalize what the SEC championship meet will look like and the NCAA championship meet, and then our schedule is almost in place. We have most of our meets pretty much locked down, and I think that once that's announced any day, I think the swimmers and athletes will show it'll be a sense of relief, because they for so long during quarantine, and I think this goes with a lot of the different athletic sports that we have. I mean, a lot of people have been training and they don't really know what they're training for, and there seems to be no end in sight. And now finally, with things kind of slowly and surely getting back to normal, we're finally getting to an end where the swimmers and athletes in particular at Alabama know that we're training for a purpose. We have, as you can see in football, we actually have games that people are watching, and we're doing well there, and we're doing well in other sports, and we finally I think they'll have a purpose for their training, and I think that'll cause really a sense of relief.
Thank you for being with us this morning, Coach Stickels. Once a schedule is announced, like you said, for this season of swimming and diving, we'll have that information right here on WVUA 23.
Thank you, Julia, and thank you, Coach. Well, Alabama and Ole Miss, just one of 7 SEC games on this Saturday menu. Let's go around the rest of the conference now and get you caught up. Here's CTKO's Crimson Jeffers.
It's the 3rd week of SEC football, and it's everything a college football fan could want. This week's lineup has a lot of grudge matches, with many schools getting to compete against former coaches and assistants.
Auburn versus Arkansas. All eyes should be on Chad Morris, Auburn's offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach. The former Razorbacks head coach will be across the field from his old team this week, one that actually won an SEC game for the first time since 2017 last week, something Morris was never able to do with the Razorbacks. Florida at Texas A&M. Today's game is personal for a lot of reasons. Not only are multiple Florida players playing in their home state as Gators for the first time, but it is a chance for the Florida program to compete against Jimbo Fisher, a villain from the 2010s. In his 8 seasons as head coach at Florida State, he went 7-1 against the Gators. LSU hosts Missouri, but the game will be in Columbia, Missouri due to the threat of Hurricane Delta. Check out the warm welcome the Bengal Tigers received from their home away from home on Friday. The video board outside Missouri Stadium with the message, "Go Tigers, we stand strong together, welcome to the zoo." And saving the best for last, Georgia versus Tennessee. Cade May's transfer from Georgia to Tennessee isn't the only interesting thing this game brings to the table. Kirby Smart takes all his rivalries personally, but he never beat the Vols or then coach, now athletic director, Philip Fulmer, as a player during his athletic career at Georgia.
Tide fans likely also know that Georgia and Tennessee are Alabama's next 2 opponents, and both are coached by former Nick Saban assistant coaches. After today, maybe Ole Miss coach Lane Kiffin will have some helpful tips to share with his group chat. Reporting for CTKO, Crimson Jeffers, back to you.
Thank you so much, Crimson. Here is the entire slate of games around the conference today. 3 games already underway. Florida at A&M, Missouri, and LSU are playing in Columbia. That game was scheduled for Baton Rouge. They moved it due to Hurricane Delta. And South Carolina is taking on Vanderbilt in Nashville. All those games underway. Coming up later, Tennessee and Georgia between the hedges. That's the CBS game of the week. Auburn looks to get back on track against Arkansas at Jordan-Hare Stadium this afternoon. Tonight, we got Paws and Claws. The Kentucky Wildcats hosting the Mississippi State Bulldogs, and Alabama and Ole Miss at 6:30. Again, that kickoff moved from 5 o'clock due to the threat from Hurricane Delta. Well, coming up on CTKO, there's a lot of buzz about the relationship between Nick Saban and Lane Kiffin. How does the Ole Miss head coach sum it up? You'll find out. And William Galloway takes us behind enemy lines to get a sneak peek at Ole Miss with Rebel reporter Parrish Alford. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
I think that's a storyline, but I don't think that's really, I know everybody downplays those things. I don't think that's really that big a deal. We worked together for 3 years, learned a lot from him, had a great run. I think we'd won 24, 26 straight games when that was over there. So very productive times with a lot of great players and a lot of wins.
And we're back here on Crimson Tide Kickoff. I'm Gary Harris. Alabama and Ole Miss are scheduled for a 6:30 p.m. kickoff at Vaught Hemingway Stadium in Oxford, and it's time to go behind enemy lines. For more on the Crimson Tide's opponent this week, CTKO's William Galloway joins us again. You spoke with Parrish Alford from the Northeast Mississippi Daily Journal. William, what did he have to say?
Hey, Gary. Parrish has covered Ole Miss since the Eli Manning days. He knows a lot about the Rebels, and he told me that this year's team struggles for consistency on both sides of the ball.
And that's kind of been the issue. As dynamic as the offense has been, the defense has been in the other direction. But in order to threaten Alabama, they're going to need to execute at a high level offensively because they're just not there defensively. So they're going to have to match what Alabama does on offense to stay in the game.
It all starts with Matt Corral for Ole Miss. Alford says his growth from last season to this season is noteworthy.
But he just looks like a totally different quarterback from last year. Now, last year he was kind of a square peg in a round hole. They were running the ball 63% of the time under Rich Rodriguez, so that the passing game in general looked pretty weak last year. So different scheme, different year, and he looks like the quarterback that they thought they had signed a couple of years ago.
Corral's growth is in part due to Kiffin's style of play, and that style has benefited the wide receiver group.
Ole Miss this year in 2 games under Lane Kiffin has not rotated receivers in and out like they have in years past. It's been a tighter knit group, and in the first 2 games they've been able to find that third receiver to really kind of elevate and contribute, but it's been different people.
Defensively for Alabama, the secondary has to be strong.
If they take away the passing game, it's going to make it really difficult to run, and Ole Miss is pretty deep at running back, but they didn't get as much done in the run game as they would have liked against Kentucky. They're really kind of evolving on the offensive line right now, and that's their biggest issue on offense.
That could allow the Alabama front 7 to really get after Ole Miss all game long. In the end, the Crimson Tide might just be too good.
Lane Kiffin's not going to win this game, but it won't be about coaching. It's going to be about personnel. They're just not there on defense right now.
They may not be there on defense, but offensively, they're going to give Alabama all the Crimson Tide can handle. Live in the studio for CTKO, I'm William Galloway.
You know, William, I agree with you. I think Ole Miss is going to score some points. I mean, they're just too good on that side of the ball. His coaching and game plan will be good. They're going to get some points, but can they stop Alabama? That'll be the challenge. Thank you for that. Well, entering the season, the spotlight was on quarterback Mac Jones, which is maybe why he shined so bright in the first 2 games. Here are some of the numbers early on. In the first 2 games, Jones has completed 38 of 51 for 684 yards with 6 touchdowns and just 1 pick, and that was a batted ball at the line of scrimmage against A&M. And how about this stat? Jones is averaging more than 13 yards per attempt. That's outstanding. He's getting it down the field, whether the pass is completed or not. But according to Coach Saban, maybe the most impressive statistics is the way his quarterback plays after he makes a mistake, like that interception, for instance.
I was pleased with the way he responded after the tip ball interception, and I think the more you understand that when things don't go well, there's good opportunities to learn and grow. And I certainly think that Mac has done that as he's progressed in these last 3 or 4 games that he's played in.
Case in point to Nick Saban's point about Mac Jones playing better after he makes a mistake. Last week's interception against A&M came on the first play of the second quarter. Jones and the offense responded with 2 touchdowns before halftime. In last season's Iron Bowl, Jones threw 2 pick sixes. Each time, he led the offense back with touchdowns following those huge mistakes. Well, coming up on Crimson Tide Kickoff, Lane Kiffin has been in and out of the SEC, but what has he noticed about Saban's offensive game plan and changing offenses throughout the years? Find out more a little bit later. And also, this week's Byrne Point is on the way. Keep it tuned in right here to CTKO on WVUA 23. Welcome into another edition of the Byrne Point. I'm Gary Harris, and I'll be joined by the Director of Athletics at the University of Alabama, Greg Byrne. And this week, we are going to discuss a topic I know you're excited about, fans are excited about, the players, the coaches, everybody at the University of Alabama, and that's the unbelievable renovations that have gone on, renovating Bryant-Denny Stadium, already one of the best facilities in the country, now even better, Greg, and so much has been done. We would prefer to have been able to unveil this stadium to 90-plus thousand fans. That's not the way it is, but for the folks watching on television and the folks in attendance at the games, they're going to see a facility that is clearly one of the best in the country and even better than before.
Yeah, obviously there's incredible history at Bryant-Denny Stadium, and when it's full, it's one of the special places in our country, and we want to make sure that continues. And what we tried to do, Gary, is have a balance between doing things for our student-athlete experience, which we updated the home locker room, which will be have unveiled by this point, so everybody has gotten to see that hopefully through social media, and then recruiting-wise, we doubled the square footage of our recruiting lounge because if you go in there in the past, it was kind of like sardines. People were packed in there pretty tight. This will be a very modern facility that shows you just from the second you arrive here at Alabama on a recruiting trip, that we want to do things the right way. The other thing that's going to be new and unique, and a lot of our fans are going to get to see it when they tour the stadium, is the new tunnel. And I can tell you, nobody else in the country has anything like this, and it's going to, depending on who's in there, we're going to have a recruiting video that the recruits will see. We'll also have one that the general fans will see when tours are available that shows you a lot about the history of Alabama football. And in time, we will build videos for, a comprehensive all sports one that will be helpful in the recruiting process too. So it's going to be a unique experience for that from a recruiting standpoint. And then for our fans, we've been able to have positive impacts for our students with the new student plaza on the lower level. That the goal for students, sometimes they have a tendency to leave at halftime. We got an area for them to go socialize, charge their phones, some new concessions, some new restrooms, fans overhead to help keep it cool, and then have them go back in the stands when halftime ends and be there for the second half of the game. So some really nice improvements for our student body. And then our fans are going to love the new video boards. They're 60% larger than the old ones, and the quality of them are so much better. It's going to be a really nice addition for our fans there. And then there's been some improvements to some of our concessions and restrooms. The West Upper Concourse has been expanded out about another 14 feet, and that's going to help the crowding on that side. I hear a lot of, we need to do the same thing on the east side. I hope we can at some point down the road, but we also have added to our elevator inventory too, both on the west and the east side, to help get people up to the upper deck. About I think the numbers, I don't think I'm transposing these, about 40% of our capacity in the stadium is in the upper decks. And so that's a lot of people going up those walkways, and that's still, if you can, that's the best way to get up there. But if you need a little extra help, we're going to have some more elevator space to help people along too, and we want to continue to add to those in time. But it'll be a nice addition for our fans on many aspects of what we're doing. Plus, we have a lot of the new premium areas some new sky boxes, founders boxes, the Eastside Premium, the standard boxes, and other than 2 boxes that we think hopefully will be committed pretty soon. And about 25% of our club area, our Champions Club, everything else is sold out. And the Champions Club seats are moving still, even at this point, as we've been dealing through all the issues of the off season. So even with that, the inventory has moved very well, and the generosity. And I want to say a lot of longtime Alabama fans have been really good and help us to have the resources to reinvest in our program to move forward. And one of the worst things we could do is not continue to reinvest in our success. And everything we've been able to do at Bryant-Denny and here at Malmore too has given us that opportunity to make sure we continue to recruit and move our program forward to the levels that we all want.
Incredible. Just unbelievable what's been done to the stadium. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention that reporters and sportscasters like me will be greeted with a brand new press box, although it'll only be at 50% capacity this year because we have to social distance in the press box as well. But you didn't leave the media out. You built us a brand new press box.
Yeah, you're going to have a new press box, and it starts about on the 35-yard line. So your view, and I've been up there just a number of times leading up to our first home game. The view is outstanding, and we still have the windows up above will open, so it'll actually be a little more comfortable because you'll have more air-conditioned space. But it's going to be a nice addition for the media. And then we've also, from a television standpoint, we were one of the few schools, major college stadiums, that didn't have the television broadcasters on the 50-yard line. They're going to be on the west side now on the 50 with the coaches' booths for the coaches who are upstairs during the game on either side of them as well. So that'll be a nice addition for the television broadcasters who obviously do a great job of giving us coverage.
Absolutely, no doubt about it. You alluded earlier to the Malmore Athletic Facility renovations, the Sports Science Center. Next week, we are going to dive into what has occurred there. It's unbelievable. I've seen the videos. You probably have as well, folks, out on social media. But the Malmore Athletic Facility renovations and Sports Science Center, that's next week on the Byrne Point. For Greg Byrne, I'm Gary Harris. We'll talk to you again next week.
The fans are cheering with that feeling in their stomach that's hard to explain. Daniel Lincoln from 45 yards out to win it for the Volunteers. The snap, the spot. The kick is blocked. It's blocked by Alabama. It is blocked by Alabama. The Crimson Tide wins. The Crimson Tide wins. The Crimson Tide wins. Terrence Cody, for the second time, I believe, got a piece of that one.
Welcome back to Crimson Tide Kickoff. Eli Gold's radio call from the last time Nick Saban and Lane Kiffin squared off as head coaches. In a game known as Rocky Block, Saban and Alabama defeated Kiffin in Tennessee 12-10 in 2009. Alabama was on its way to an undefeated season and first national championship under Coach Saban. Well, Lane Kiffin has made 3 stops in the SEC, 2 of them as a head coach. CTKO's Julia Westerman joins us now live here in the studio with more on Kiffin and what he's seen in the conference over the years.
Thanks, Gary. Ole Miss head coach Lane Kiffin is no stranger with being a head coach in the SEC, but the last time he held that title outside of his position now was in 2009 at Tennessee. Changed a lot as a coach from his days as a volunteer to now being back in the SEC as head coach of Ole Miss. He has adapted, and so has the game. His last stop was in the SEC with the Crimson Tide from 2014 to 2016. And one thing he's noticed in his former boss is as the leaves have changed with each football season, so has Saban's offensive game plan.
Playing him at Tennessee versus playing him now, whatever that is, 11 years later or something. There's so much more dynamic on offense when, how they play and pushing the ball downfield. We played them, they had Julio Jones, Mark Ingram, Trent Richardson. Great offensive line, McElroy, all that. But it was a different offense, it was more of a grinded out, slow, and people could keep scores closer. Now they just kind of blow everybody out.
We'll see how Kiffin and Ole Miss fare against the 2020 Alabama offense tonight at 6:30. Live in the studio for CTKO, I'm Julia Westerman.
All right, Julia, great stuff. Alabama is favored by 24 points against Ole Miss. Also, the Crimson Tide beat the Rebels in the last 4 games after Ole Miss had those back-to-back wins in 14 and 15. So what gives the Rebels the best shot at the upset? The likely answer is their coach, Lane Kiffin. The Ole Miss coach is highly thought of for his offensive mind and schemes and approach. Kiffin is also a former Nick Saban assistant, and even though the Tide's coach is 20-0 in matchups with his former assistants, Coach Kiffin may be more established as a coach outside of his time just here in Tuscaloosa.
Please get closer.
Yeah, of course. We want to keep the game. We want to win and everything. And win is the ultimate goal. So we don't want to go in thinking about the past. We just look forward to the future. Focus. We control what we can control. They're just like any other team. They put their pads on just like we do. So I can't really answer that question. We just got to be ready.
Obviously it's a really good group. They're Alabama. Obviously, they have some really good players. But we're going to see what we've got working. We've obviously got a good game plan going in. Coach Levy, Coach Kiffin, Coach Clem. Everybody. So we're really excited about the challenge this weekend.
And we talk other sports here on CTKO as well. Tomorrow afternoon, Alabama soccer hosts number 9 Arkansas at the Alabama Soccer Stadium. It's the team's first home match since the season opener 3 weeks ago. Alabama's looking for a better result than the last time out. Last weekend in Gainesville, Florida dealt Alabama its first loss of the season in the rain, despite the first career goal by sophomore Sidney Vincent. While in the net for the Tide, junior McKinley Crone made 10 saves for the day, but it wasn't enough. Bama fell 2-1 to the Gators. Through 3 matches, the Crimson Tide's won, 1-1. And we'll be right back with more CTKO after this.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm Mike Royer, and joined today by the president and CEO of the Chamber of Commerce of West Alabama. That's Jim Page, a regular on our station from time to time. Good to see you, Jim.
Good to see you. Thanks for having me.
Has 2020 been the weirdest year you've ever dealt with, both in life and professionally?
Personally and professionally, it's unlike anything I've ever seen. I'm ready for this year to be in the rearview mirror, and we can get back to normal, whatever that is.
Well, we attempted that last home game, the first home game of the season, though restricted in crowd size. That was a good day for Alabama football and for the city of Tuscaloosa and our area, wasn't it?
No question. I can't say enough about the university and the protocols they've put in place on campus just in general, but especially when it came to the football game. I went, had a great experience, and I feel like all the fans there were safe, and it was a great experience. But getting back to football season, I think is good for us psychologically to get back to something we're used to. But obviously our local economy, it means a lot to it. And so it was good to see people back in town spending money with local businesses and, again, trying to get back to some semblance of normalcy.
I read where Mayor Maddox was very pleased with Saturday and how it went. The city's keeping a close eye on our students downtown, wanting them to be more careful and to do all the things they're supposed to do. Reining in 19-year-olds is not always easy. Do you have a feel after that first game of how the economy went? What are you hearing from bar owners, restaurant owners, and just the local business folks? What are you hearing?
Well, it's positive. I think everyone's happy about everyone feeling safe, and I can't say enough about the restaurants and most of the bar owners. They're all going above and beyond to make sure their patrons have a safe and pleasant experience. But it's nothing compared to past football seasons that we're accustomed to. So while it's great to have people back in town, it's going to be a fraction of what we experienced in the past in terms of economic impact. But having said that, it's better than nothing. It's better than what we've experienced the last few months.
How many games are played, how many folks can attend is not a Chamber of Commerce thing that you can be in control of. No. But doesn't it make sense from your perspective that if everyone, I mean everyone, does what they're supposed to do, we can have more people in the stands and that economy only will get better for our business community?
No question. We've got to do this right. And I know local government, state government has gotten a lot of flack about measures that have been put into place, but it's first and foremost about protecting people. But the quicker we can get past this virus and snuff it out of our community and our country and our world, for that matter, the quicker we can get back to what we know as normal, and that we can have a full capacity in our restaurants and in our bars. And so we all have to do our part to be smart so that we can get back to that. And I think that if we do the rest of the season what we did last Saturday, then we're going to be in good shape.
The city has done a lot to try to help local businesses. Of course, anyone can criticize how they did it, how much, whether it was too much or not enough. But it seems that while imposing orders and restrictions on things. They haven't just done that and said good luck to you. They've really tried to help as much as they could. Is that the feeling you have from your perspective?
I do. Really proud of the city of Tuscaloosa, the leadership they've shown of not only trying to put health and safety above politics and all else, but also realizing that businesses are affected financially through this. And so one example that I'm really proud of is our Small Business Relief Fund that we partner with the city of Tuscaloosa on. We've helped collectively, we've helped almost 300 businesses in total for over $1.25 million. That's to help pay rent, to pay basic monthly expenses to try to get through this. And so not only have restrictions been put in place because really they were necessary at the time, but the city's also tried to understand there's a financial impact, and they've done their part to reinvest that money.
And I know you can't put a number on it, but some of those businesses that you helped through that fund may not have opened again ever if they didn't get that support.
No question. And I've got a growing list of testimonials from small business owners that said this was the lifeline I needed to get over the hump, especially when there were mandates of certain businesses being closed for a period of time. They said, you know, this got me to getting other financial aid, or it got me to where we got customers back. And so, there's the proof is in the pudding, and we've got that the Small Business Relief Fund has literally kept the doors open of some businesses, and we all should be proud of that.
Let's wrap up with some optimism. I just refuse to be a pessimist about this. A little under 20,000 fans came to the game here. The next, maybe a few more. And down the road, if not this season, next, we're going to get back to close to 100,000 fans and 40,000 more out on the quad, and we eventually will get there together.
I think we will too. The quicker that we can all, do our individual part to be safe, then I think collectively we'll all benefit by being able to tailgate again on the campus, be able to get more people in the stadium. We've got a fantastic football team this year that I really think can go all the way, and so more and more people need to be able to see that with their own two eyes. And so I think the rest of the season bodes well for us.
Neither one of us are football coaches, but wouldn't you just run the playground play? You run as far as you can, and he's going to throw it as far as you can.
Absolutely.
It's fun to watch.
We're always going to have the best athletes on the field. Let them go do their thing.
Exactly. Jim Page, you do a great job with the Chamber. Thank you for your time, and thanks for your leadership.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Roll Tide.
Roll Tide. Let's go back to Gary.
Appreciate that, Mike, and also appreciate Jim Page, the president and CEO of the West Alabama Chamber of Commerce. Well, this is a big weekend for former Crimson Tide tennis star Alexa Garaci, the biggest of her career. Garaci and her partner, Desiree Krawczyk, have reached the women's doubles final at the French Open at Roland Garros. Garaci and Krawczyk will face the number 2 ranked team in the world on Sunday in the final. They've already beaten the number 1 ranked team in the world, so it's no big deal to them. This would be unbelievable if she and her partner can bring home that championship. Well, still to come on CTKO, one last look at the forecast for Oxford and Tuscaloosa. How big of a factor will the weather be for the game? We'll have that for you. And the coaches have had some fun this week getting ready for tonight's game between, a little back and forth between Saban and Kiffin. We'll have that for you coming up here on CTKO.
You're going against Alabama, but you're going against Nick Saban, right?
Well, I don't play and he doesn't play, so we'd have better chances if that was the case. I don't think he can cover me. He's got a
Well, I don't know. He's a former defensive back, so he might be able to cover you.
Yeah, he's in his like. I was told the other day, I'm really worried about Coach. He's elderly now. So
oh no.
No, I think he's probably right. I wouldn't disagree with him. I guess what I would ask is when he's my age, what's he going to be like then? I don't know. I mean, it's a little bit of a, disadvantage to be, my age and have had a hip replacement. But, I still pride myself in my ability to cover. I just don't think I could cover him.
Coach Saban is going to be 69 on Halloween. He still looks fit as a fiddle. All right, time to check in with a final look at the forecast with Chelsea.
Yeah, again, we're still getting those effects and impacts from what was Hurricane Delta. Currently, right now, it's a tropical depression. The center really located over Oxford, where the game will be today, later this evening. But again, still getting those outer rain bands. A lot of rain over here towards central Alabama, less rain towards Oxford, and that rain will continue to taper off. We also are getting some measurable wind gusts, 24 miles per hour over in portions of Mississippi and in the 20-mile-per-hour range as well here. Temperatures right now, we're in the mid-70s, lower 70s across central Alabama and Mississippi. So expect temperatures to feel great. You could experience some mugginess from this influx of moisture. Again, as we go throughout the next few hours, by game time, still going to be dealing with some drizzle and mist. Not likely going to be seeing any heavy downpours, but you might want to keep that poncho nearby. Again, this system will continue to propagate out of our area. You're going to want to keep that poncho nearby. We could see some wind gusts as well. Gary?
Thank you, Chelsea. That's going to wrap it up for CTKO. I want to thank Stu, our producer, and Jen, our director, and all the great folks that make this program possible. And thank you for joining us. William Galloway in tonight at 10 with all your college football action, including Alabama and Ole Miss for Oxford. So for everyone here, I'm Gary Harris. Have a great Saturday. Enjoy all your SEC football. Roll Tide, everybody.